Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
We live off-grid on a 43-acre homestead in the high desert of northern Arizona. It's about 1 mile in height. We have 6.2 miles between us and the closest power pole. So when I say we're off-grid, we're completely off-grid. There's no chance of us connecting to the utility for power.
Right. It would cost, well, if they allowed you to, it would cost you a fortune. It's thousands of dollars per pole.
They're not going to allow it for a whole lot of reasons.
Yeah. I've heard all kinds of rumors, but yeah.
We also don't have a well because it's 1,300 feet to the aquifer where we live.
Or I might just move. I don't know. Let somebody else deal with it.
But we're here to talk about Pure Living for Life. It's a YouTube channel that we watched literally from their beginning episodes.
Yeah, we watched for years with them. For years. Because at first they were pretty cool. Now, one of the things that went... Henry and I were talking about this on a lot of different levels the other day.
Well, first of all, they just put out a show after 2 years of not publishing anything about cyberbullying and their experiences and how they and their family have suffered the effects of online bullying.
Right. It happens. I mean, the first video or two that we put out, we had some very, very rude comments. Enough to sit there and make you go, what is wrong with these people? Who has time to make rude comments like this without even knowing who the heck we are?
You know, the initial response that most people have is to get right back in people's face and say, you're a hole.
Yeah, right.
But you know, that doesn't do anything. If you're going to be in the public image, in public eye, you're going to get haters and you're going to get followers.
Right.
That's just the way of the world. That's going to happen all the time. And you can never tell what's going to piss people off.
Yeah. You know, no, there's things we don't talk about. Henry and I talked about the Pure Living for Life stuff the other day, and I said, this reminds me of a story that one of my professors in college talked about. There's a specific book we had to read in which they were talking about this primitive tribe living in South America.
Yeah, it was yeah, the book was an anthropologist study of a warring group.
My professor said, I know this guy. He's a very naturally aggressive person.
He knew him personally, so this is not somebody who
He's
is
somebody
going
he went to school with.
Yeah.
So he'd been around him a lot in his graduate school experience. And this guy was aggressive. He was naturally aggressive. He was naturally kind of one of those in-your-face people, which sometimes can be okay, and sometimes those in-your-face people, you just really want to, you know, stick your fist in their face. And he said he felt that he brought out the antagonism in these people, that other people didn't have the same response to them. You're going to give back what people give you. Just the way it is. And he felt that this person had affected the way the quote-unquote primitive tribe was responding. And that therefore a lot of his assessments about that tribe, and I've read a report since then that said this guy was off in the bushes somewhere, we felt that Pure Living for Life and some other channels we've watched did the same thing.
Well, maybe not intentionally, but they did have kind of, sometimes had
aggressive attitudes.
Edge.
He actually got on and said, I don't read any of your stupid comments because it's a waste of my time.
So let's stop and talk about that and viewers' comments.
Right.
The fastest way to get people more than irritated with you is to argue with them in the comments, ignore their comments, or make fun of them in the comments. Now, it doesn't matter how rude they might be. At one point, I had a comment on our channel about were we two men in this relationship. In other words, was Irene a man and was I a man? I could have taken umbrage at that, and I have to tell you that it did put me off a bit. But responding in kind wasn't going to do a thing. And what I did instead was say, no, we're a happily married husband and wife. We have 2 children, and we just happen to be older. So if you're young and you don't know that as people age, their voices change and their faces change,
And my
sorry.
mustache is not nearly as good as Henry's.
So there's a few things like that. You know, my career of 46 years was based primarily on managing large groups of people and problematic products that needed some help. The one thing I can tell you absolutely is that there's no way to convince the people who are absolute haters to change their mind. So don't try to change their mind, but do respond in some fashion.
Thank you for commenting.
I
Yes.
hear you. I read what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Thank you for commenting. All those kinds of ways of saying something without saying anything are available. It's difficult, very difficult. When you do a YouTube channel, if it gets to be large, like Pure Living for Life's channel is large, it's about 450,000 subscribers. When you get that many people, you're going to have a percentage that hate your guts. And they watch you because they hate your guts. And you're going to have a percentage that follow you and like you because they are dyed-in-the-wool followers of yours. They are in love with you. And the vast middle is neither haters nor lovers. So you just have to be prepared to expect that. Now, one thing that Alyssa did say in her video that is absolutely true. We as creators, when you get to a certain size, and we're certainly not that big, when you get to a certain size, you have all the problems that a Hollywood studio, a Hollywood star, or a Hollywood production would have without Hollywood budgets.
Yeah, you can't afford the security guards. You might be able to afford a security system, but if you really do live off-grid in the middle of nowhere, no one's coming.
Well, very few people are willing to go through the effort to really find you.
Yeah, we have seen other families who decided to take their girls off the channels because they felt they were getting some
Inappropriate comments.
I mean, there's creepers out there, whether you have girls or boys.
The alarm's going off in her ears, and it's also going off
On the phone.
in the kitchen.
Yeah. This is a
So
comedy spot.
at the end of the day, there's going to be people who are making inappropriate innuendos about you, your spouse, your kids, your pets.
It's on the level a lot of times of your mom wears combat boots from when we were in elementary school. Most people, if you don't rise to the bait, will go away.
You know, there are people who are going to spend oodles of time, days, weeks, months, researching all the details they can find out about you if you're a creator. And what I can tell you is that you'd be amazed at what people can find out with little time. This idea that it's going to take years and years and years to build up a dossier, it doesn't take that long, especially if you're willing to spend a little bit of money for public records requests and things like that.
Yeah.
You have to have thick skin if you're going to do this. The worst thing you can possibly do is go onto your channel and say, well, all these negative comments were coming in, so we're just going to shut off comments. No, you shut off comments and you force them to go into another area, and then you have a band of people who are going to come after you. That's just the way it works.
It reinforces the negativity. We actually, one of the things they were complaining about was this band of people who'd gotten together and were making fun of them and were putting out fake videos. Now, the fake videos were using a name similar to theirs. I don't remember what it was exactly.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
But we had actually seen them. And they were funny. In a couple of our previous videos of being true to yourself and being who you are. If you're fake, if you're not really off-grid, I mean, somebody's going to catch on at some point.
Well, let's talk about how you present information. When we first started watching Pure Living for Life, it was great because their camera angles were excellent. They were showing their place being really physically isolated. And they weren't saying they were isolated. They said they were...
They implied, and they allow you, because they're talking about homesteading and all that kind of stuff, your brain goes to, oh, they're out in the sticks somewhere, and they're really far away. And then one of the videos that they took, they shot a little bit farther to the right, and we realized you can see houses
It's really important to understand the message and the impression that you're leaving with other people. I don't show drone shots anymore because I don't want to make it easy for somebody to find out exactly where we live. Would I like to show more drone shots? Sure, because we live in a really pretty area. At least I think it's pretty most of the time. It's not pretty right now with the mud. But I don't want to be showing our location in relationship to other people where somebody could go find out where we are and come out and bug us.
There have been, I mean, the fear on a couple of makers' faces, especially the females, who had kids playing in the yard and had somebody show up in their yard while their children are playing in the yard and say, hi, you know, I watched you on YouTube. Nice kids you got there. We saw that happen to multiple families. We saw that happen to one family down in southern Cochise County area.
Right.
And he started putting up funny messages on his YouTube for a while there. You know, like it would say something like, "Don't you dare come on my property," sort of, you know, in "Don't you dare come on my property, Arizona." My watch is not connected, so I can't turn it off. It's a communist plot.
A few moments later.
I believe Alyssa when she was talking on her show. There's some visual clues present if you're a student of body language. There's certain kinds of facial conditions that are difficult, not impossible, but difficult.
There are Oscar-winning performers out there who can pull it off, but
the average person is not going to be able to.
Right.
One of the problems that you have, and I have to say that when it comes to Pure Living for Life, there were some things that were shown in their shows that made me question how truthful they were being. For example, one I talked about was the camera angle and showing that it's a very rural place, and that's fine. Do that, but just don't leave the impression that you live in the middle of the sticks, because a 15-minute drive to town for water or to the hardware store or to pick up a latte
it's not in the sticks.
It's not in the sticks. So that's one thing, and I will say that that's one of the problems that I believe they probably had. Now, maybe I just pay more attention to those things. I know Irene does. But in the grand scheme of things, you don't want to be telling people things that aren't true. And you don't want to be misleading. For example, they were going to be off-grid with solar. Now, I know a thing or two about solar. I have a good electrical and electronics background, and I watched what was going on, and I made a few comments to no avail, which one of the problems you have to deal with when you're presenting this material online in a video is when somebody says, buddy, it's this way, it's not the way you're trying to say. You have to be willing to say, oops, I was wrong. If you continue on, that's going to make people wonder, what do you really know?
Or are you reading any of the comments? And when he announced that he wasn't, that we were all a waste of air, and that he never read any of the comments, because and he's not the only person who's done that. There's a couple of other people we've watched. Oh, the negative kickback they got off the internet made them rethink that a little bit.
So that's one thing. But in the end of their build, when they were actually able to start moving into their house, they made a decision to bring in power to their home. And I have to tell you, I'm absolutely for bringing in power to your homestead if it's available at a reasonable price.
Because you can always choose to go offline later, and in some areas of the United States, you can actually, we have a friend who has panels on her roof. What the electric company does is actually like rent your roof.
Yeah, what they do is they pay back part of the energy they harvest from your roof, and so she has essentially no power bill.
Yeah, which is a big deal when you're on a limited income. So, you know, if you, and we know other people who've gone on grid because they discovered they couldn't get a loan, In our part of the United States, you can get a loan, but it's harder.
So let's talk specifically about the reveal of putting their homestead on grid for electric. That's not a problem. But one of the problems is if you don't explain to people why you've changed your mind, that's going to get lost. Bad. But I don't think you're bad.
No, I mean, not to us. I mean, we understand, having lived off grid for 17 years, we get why people would want to be on grid. There's times when you're arguing for the 27th time with some piece of equipment. And
like a generator
like
that
a
I'm going to have to take back tomorrow because the brand new one is failing?
Yes. I have an alarm set on my phone so that it goes off every half hour to stick my head out the door to make sure it's still running.
So really, look, what I'm really saying is that if you're going to be in the public eye, no matter how big your channel, you're going to get nasty, rude, inappropriate comments. It's going to happen.
Right.
The bigger the channel gets, the more of those comments you're going to get.
Right. And it's funny because we watch videos so many times and we're like, oh, MG, what the blankety blank 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 is wrong with that person? I don't type that.
There's a lot of things that you can do to keep those naysayers under control. The worst one is turning off comments, because as soon as you turn off comments,
they'll go somewhere else.
People are going to start saying,
oh, they must have something to hide.
They're hiding something.
Oh, yeah, they're bad. Ooh, you know.
They don't want people to be able to tell them what they're doing wrong.
Right. And there are times when we have posted to a channel because they were doing something dangerous. The sensible channels at that point come on and say, we got a bunch of comments and we double checked this and thank you so much for letting us know we were doing something dangerous.
Yeah. When it comes to Pure Living for Life, they have some great ideas on their cyberbullying website. It's good stuff. When I read it, I'm not sure which one of them wrote it. I have my suspicions, but it doesn't matter. At the end of it all, when you put together a show like Cyberbullying, which was a good show, you have to really think through what impression you're going to leave. There's no reason, for example, to say we don't know how we can have people provide financial help to people who are being cyberbullied, because it's expensive if you're going to try to track down the people who are doing the bullying, and it is. The problem, though, is those people who are harboring latent doubts about you and your channel are going to say, you're trying to make money by this thing.
That was because that was one of the first. Henry said, "What's your response?" And I'm like, "They just brought money in. They're going to ask for money. They're going to try and what are they going to do? Set up a nonprofit for helping people who are? Would I trust them with a dime of my money? Absolutely not.
Why?
I just don't, because they've lied to us before.
I don't know if they've necessarily lied, but they've definitely misrepresented.
They've definitely misrepresented it. And you misrepresent to me. I'm just not big on trusting you again. It's just, one of those self-survival sort of things, Now,
if you watch their channel for a long time, one of the things you know is that they didn't do all the design work themselves. No. They didn't do all of the building of the timber frame structure themselves.
And they didn't say they did either.
Well, in the recent shows, they did say, we built this.
Right, they didn't build this. They had a class come from Shelter Institute in Maine.
Which we know very well. We used to live right next to them. Irene took a class from them.
Right.
We both still know the former CEO of the company. We know their son who took it over. We know their daughter. We knew their daughter when she was...
a kid.
Not even knee-high. So we know them, and we know the kind of people they are, and I know especially what kind of decision making they would go through to go to Idaho to help a young couple build a timber frame structure.
Right. What they did was they got a class together, because when you take certain timber framing classes, you actually build a timber frame, or at least a piece of one, as part of your class. So whether you're actually building someone's home, which happens sometimes depending on the school you go to, or you're building a shed, or you're building something, but you actually physically get to do the construction raise the piece into place, and watch it stand there.
And that's exactly what happened. It was a full-size residential structure, two-story, which is great for a class. It's exactly what you want to have for a timber framing class. When they did the timber frame, they did it manually using hand tools. Everything that they did was exactly as it would have been done if you'd gone to Shelter Institute in Wiscasset, Maine, and attended one of their classes.
Right. We got a lot out of those videos. We enjoyed them. We actually found another maker through that. The guy who's another creator. He's a photographer that we still watch. In fact, we just watched one of his videos this week. He doesn't film as often as he used to, but we connected to some of the photography community through him.
There's a lot of things that when you are a creator in a large-scale channel, and 450,000 subscribers is a large channel. When you have that kind of a following, you need to be very careful about what you claim. Now, is Alyssa right about cyberbullying? Absolutely. She is absolutely right about cyberbullying going on. The only difference between cyberbullying of today and in-person bullying from when we were kids is the difference is in person, if somebody was bullying you or your friends, I don't endorse physical violence, but there was always the ultimate
and
last
in those
resort.
days, it was a fist fight. It wasn't, you didn't whip out a firearm.
There are things that were done on the Pure Living for Life channel that I wouldn't have done. I would not have featured purchasing an airplane, no matter how good the deal was, because what that does is that creates questions in viewers' minds. Is this group actually doing this work themselves? And where did they come up with all the money? When you get to a large enough channel, you can make a reasonable amount of money. We're not making money on YouTube. We have a pittance coming in. It doesn't cover the cost of cameras or audio equipment
or the internet.
Or internet
Connectivity.
But that's okay. That's not the primary reason why we were doing this channel.
But we don't begrudge it when you see somebody working really hard.
There's a lot of things on YouTube that the wrong phraseology, the wrong word can set people off.
Yeah.
Now, do I like Pure Living for Life? I still like their channel. I just wish they would do some more content.
Well, she did an old one the other day that we think is recycled video from years ago, and it was cool to see the progress she's made on her garden. I mean, when she started, that was a rocky patch of nothing, and she got him to help her with some of the fencing and stuff like that, because you need real fencing, because otherwise you'll have an elk in your garden, and that's the end of that. You know, she really put some time and effort in there, and a lot of failed attempts and a lot of this and that and the other thing. But, you know, it was fun to see that because you're going, wow, she's made a lot of progress here. That was her back that did that.
You know, if you garden, you're going to have failures. No matter how much experience you have, you're going to have failures.
Yeah. But it wasn't long after they built their house, when they were on their own and didn't have the Shelter Institute there, that things started looking phony. And then we were seeing comments made about the fact that they weren't living there and that they were actually living in town somewhere. Well, we know of other people who had to live someplace else because of disasters. I mean, their house, even though they had built a house, it was a frame and it was not livable. So their other choice was to live in their old RV where they'd lived all along. Hey, that gets old. We've lived in an RV before.
Yeah, we lived in an RV. We lived in a 26-foot-long, single-wide RV for 3 years. I encourage you to go look at the YouTube show on Pure Living for Life on cyberbullying. It's worthwhile. Do I think that this is an altruistic
No.
promotion?
They've got an angle. I hate to say that. There are people that you see on YouTube that you know there's going to be an angle. You may not know what it's going to be initially, and you're waiting to see that other shoe drop. And when they mentioned funding for people who need to get legal assistance with cyberbullying, my instant thought was
strategic
angle.
error. Strategic error, by the way.
Yeah. Every alarm in the house is currently going on. I'll be right back.
What I can tell you about Pure Living for Life is that they're in the public eye. no matter what they think, everything they do is going to be under intense scrutiny. The more your story doesn't line up, the more people are going to question. Irene is the designated pessimist. I'm the designated optimist in our relationship. And I find it distressing when Irene and I mostly agree on a YouTube channel like this about whether or not we trust them. And trust is not something that you gain overnight, but it's something you can lose overnight.
Oh, yeah.
If I could reach out to Alyssa in particular, I would tell her, think about the impression that it's leaving to the people who watch your channel. Personally, I've written him off. There's nothing about the way Jesse holds himself out that exudes trust. There's a lot that's been done really nicely by Pure Living for Life. There's been a bunch of mistakes along the way, and that's okay. You can make a mistake learning to do a new skill, learning to do a new craft. It's even fine to show it on your channel.
In fact, sometimes it can be very helpful to other people to show it. This made sense to us. This is how the process that we made to think it through, and boy, were we wrong. We missed these points.
How you present the information and the order in which you present it and how you stage the information is really critical. I spent 1.5 years staging information to 685 customers of a semiconductor computer chip company's customers because the product was late when I came in and took over the product line. At the end of 1.5 years, I still had 685 customers. There's ways to go back and correct the screw-ups you made. It's not easy, it's not pleasant, and it's definitely humbling. So what I have to say is that cyberbullying is for sure a real thing. It happens, just as bullying in a school or in a social gathering happens. It happens
in a workplace.
online. And when it comes to cyberbullying, just remember, people are safe behind a keyboard. They're anonymous behind a keyboard. I don't care what they say their name is. You can't trust it.
Who are they really?
If they show you that they're trustworthy, that's fine. But somebody who's going to be going in cyberbullying and organizing people to get under your skin is not somebody to be trusted. But do listen to what they have to say, because there may be some grains of truth in what they're saying.
Be yourself. Don't let cyberbullying be a hot topic for you in terms of responding instantly.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to get it. Somebody's going to, I watch somebody sometimes on TV and I'll think, I'll watch my own videos and I'm going, I won't wear that outfit again. That was not flattering. Or, don't remember not to bend over in front of the camera that way,
Yeah, I talk to her all the time about that.
Right. And we know some channels that capitalize on that. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because obviously there will be lots going on. We've got a ton to do in the next couple of days. We actually had sun today. Yay!
The first time in 9 days.
The original forecast was rain this afternoon. And then when we looked at it this morning, I'm like, wait, the forecast has changed. The rain's
and it's
gone.
changed a little bit for tomorrow. We'll have at least a little bit of partly cloudy in the morning, and it'll rain in the afternoon.
Right. I may actually try to get something done outside, because I have a bunch of things that are waiting on other things at this point.
We have a lot of things that have been staged for months.
Yeah.
First it was wind.
Yeah, right.
Wind that you cannot work in when you're trying to handle
Not safely,
sheet goods.
no. And it's just stupid stuff. I mean, like, I have cardboard stored in the back of the truck.
Sheet goods.
Yes, because we had gotten some flat pack furniture, which I put together for the house, for extra storage, some cabinets and shelving and stuff. And I wanted to use that cardboard because it's a good flat...
We're going to put it on the raised beds to kill off some weeds.
Well, we'll pull the weeds, and then we'll put it down to keep the weeds from regenerating and stuff like that. It'll also provide food for the earthworms, because I've done that before, and half the time it's mostly gone by spring. But I couldn't do that because, I'm sorry, the weather was just too bad.
Say goodbye, Irene.
Okay. So until next time, Bye.
And keep on brainstorming.
Yes, obviously. You need to. It's important.